ending. So, if you don't want to know the result, look away now. It was the 15th of March, 44 BC, and according to contemporary accounts, Julius Caesar was going to work. Very little of Caesar's Rome still exists, but we can get a glimpse of the ruins of the Senate House, the building where he died. When he gets to where the Senate is meeting, somewhere around here, everybody's chatting and gossiping until Caesar takes his seat. At that point, one of his friends, apparently wanting to ask him a favour, goes over to his chair and pulls on his toga. That's the signal. Suddenly, 20 or more of them, friends, colleagues, politicians, surround him. Out come their daggers and everyone has a go. Into Caesar's face, his thighs, his chest. Caesar fights back with the only weapon he's got. It was his pen, and it's hopeless. There's mess and panic everywhere, and everybody scarpers. That's what everybody knows about Julius Caesar. He gets killed. He wasn't the only famous Roman to meet a bloody end, but no other has captured our imagination in quite the same way. The scene of Caesar's murder has been immortalised in hundreds of paintings and in William Shakespeare's tragedy, Julius Caesar. It was in fact Shakespeare who coined the famous phrase et tu, Brute, you too, Brutus, that Caesar is supposed to have cried out when he saw one of his dearest friends wielding a dagger. Words we still use today as a shorthand for disloyalty and backstabbing. Maybe something we hear a bit too often in modern politics? But how and why did Julius Caesar end up literally and metaphorically stabbed in the back? How could a rich, but frankly not A-list aristocrat gain such power that the only way to get rid of him was to kill him? The Rome that Caesar was born into in 100 BC wasn't a bit like the ancient Rome we see in the movies. It was super powerful, all right, but there was no Colosseum, no gleaming white marble. All that came later. Caesar's Rome was home to about 1 million people, most of them living in pretty squalid, low-rise brick buildings. It was a sort of democracy, that's to say, everybody had a vote, apart from the women and the slaves, but real power was in the hands of a few rich, aristocratic families like Caesar's. How very different from now, eh? So this was not yet the Rome ruled by emperors. It was a democracy, where power was never in the hands of one person for too long. But Caesar would change all that. Looking back on it, you can almost see his rise to power as a brilliantly executed strategy game, a masterclass in how to be top and engineer the ultimate power grab, one that would become a manual for leaders right up to now. And step one was simple: rewrite your own history. Caesar wasn't always marked out for success, but like all so-called great men, almost every aspect of his early life was eventually spun to suggest that he was, in Caesar's case, right back to his birth, C-section or not. It's a kind of creation myth. The truth is that his early career was actually pretty ordinary, playing by the rules. Like all Roman posh boys. And step one was simple: rewrite your own history. Caesar wasn't always marked out for success, But like all so-called great men, almost every aspect of his early life was eventually spun to suggest that he was, in Caesar's case, right back to his birth, C-section or not. It's kind of creation myth. The truth is that his early career was actually pretty ordinary, playing by the rules. Like all Roman posh boys. And step one was simple. Rewrite your own history. Caesar wasn't always marked out for success. Rewrite your own history. Caesar wasn't always marked out for success. But like all so-called great men, almost every aspect of his early life was eventually spun to suggest that he was, in Caesar's case, right back to his birth.